morning, Bob.
Good morning, Bill.
Today is a Monday morning. This is FNC's Morning View, and there is a story out that is a follow-on from our Alpha Conference.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. At our Alpha Conference, we had two speakers who were very much in the know, Phil Graham and Barney Frank.
Diametrically opposed
Right.
on many of the issues.
And I asked them both the same question. I asked them, what is going to happen with the GSEs? You know, and Phil Graham said, oh, well, nobody knows, and he certainly didn't know. And everybody sort of nodded and said, well, yeah, that's probably true. And I asked Barney Frank, and he said, well, we're going to get rid of the GSEs. We're going to replace them with a private insurers, and then the government will be a reinsurer of last resort.
And you know why he said those things?
Why is that?
Because he's no longer a politician.
Exactly.
All right? and it sounds like he was in the know.
Right. So today, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that there's a bipartisan policy center, which is a think tank, Washington think tank, and they're coming out with a report today on a recommendation of what to do with the GSEs.
Which is preceding the Treasury's.
Well, they think it's going to activate or motivate the Treasury to release the study that they've been doing. This was headed by former Senators George Mitchell, Democrat,
Right.
and Mel Martinez and Kit Bond, who were Republicans, and Cisneros, Henry Cisneros, who was the
Secretary of
HUD, right. And so, you know, they're senior people. They know what's going on.
Speaking of senior people, it's easier to remember those names than it is the current ones, right?
Right, exactly, yeah. And it had a 21-member commission, and they made a recommendation. They've been studying for about 16 months. And surprisingly, it sounds exactly what Barney and Frank was saying.
It sounds like he's in the know, and he could tell the truth now that he's no longer in office.
Exactly, yeah.
He had a great line. You remember the line he had?
I'm sure you'll tell us.
Well, he said, I'll tell the truth and all the truth, but if you want the whole truth, you need to go to somebody like a minister.
Right. But, you know, it looks, I guess they're going to fund this. The proposal is to fund this with a fee on any issuance of MBS. Okay, so every time they'd issue an MBS, they would have a fee associated with that. That would go to fund that reinsurance.
Right.
The criticism of this that's already starting to come out is, well, how are they going to set rates?
Because, will it raise borrowing costs? Right? The real thing is, will it raise borrowing costs? Let's talk just a second about what the GSEs have done for the American mortgage market. The first thing they've done is they have standardized the form. So if you apply for a mortgage in Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, California, you all complete the same application as a Fannie Mae Form 1003. Now, it can be in different languages. There's a Spanish version, but the forms are all standard.
Right.
If it's an appraisal, it's typically done on a Fannie Mae Form 1004. There's a Freddie Mac equivalent, but it's a standard set of documents. And there's some uniqueness by state, but it's still a standard set of documents. So when an investor buys those loans, they're looking potentially at a standard set of documents.
Right.
So that's the first thing they've done. The second thing they've done is they provide liquidity. Your local bank, your local mortgage company makes you that mortgage, and what they need to do to reliquify their balance sheet is they need to sell it to somebody.
Right. They don't have the capacity to make all the loans that people want and retain all of those on their balance sheet.
Right.
They just simply don't have
I
that
mean,
capacity.
it sounds good in theory,
Right.
but the reality, I mean, that's sort of like this whole idea of risk retention, putting a portion on your balance sheet. That also constrains
What you can do.
Exactly. I mean, it sounds good, but it places an artificial constraint.
I thought another interesting aspect of that report was that they put a lot of focus on rental housing, okay,
Right.
and what to do about rental housing. And I saw another report this weekend that talked about that, and a lot of the big and institutional investors are just buying up properties all over the country and using them for rental.
Well, look at returns. So what is an investor to expect from a return situation? What can they get from buying treasuries? That's sort of if we talk about an upward sloping yield curve, if we take the 10-year treasury, what are you going to earn? You're going to earn like 2%?
Right.
Right?
And the financing of this is kind of interesting because what they're doing is at first they were buying up a lot of foreclosed properties.
Right.
Okay, but they were bidding those prices up above even arm's length transactions. And so more recently, they've been buying a lot of brand new houses.
Right.
As for this, and the financials of this, they've put in so far about $5.4 billion in the last 18 months, and the Barron's expects it to be another $8 billion over the next 2 years.
Well, that's because it's got fantastic leverage, right? You can probably do it with 20% down, maybe 30. All right, so you get fantastic leverage going in, and then you've got a rental stream with an option on the appreciation in the value of the property.
Exactly.
From a fund perspective.
Right. And so what they're thinking is that they're going to get about a 6.5% return on this. What they're doing is they're charging 1% of the purchase price as the monthly rent.
6% unlevered.
Unlevered, yes, I believe.
So levered, it could be
huge,
you know,
right.
like 2 to 3 times. It's just fantastic.
And they're looking right now, the standard house that they're buying is about 2,000 square feet. It's less than 15 years old. It's in a above average school district.
So you could, if you were coming out of a foreclosure, see, you've also got the demand side for rental. So you've had the supply,
right,
which has been constrained, but now has opened up because of these foreclosed properties. You also have the demand side. You had home ownership at all-time highs, and now we've backed off of that, and so we've converted some of those former homeowners into renters.
Right, and the inventory as a result of housing is way down.
And so you've got, what do economists teach us when there's big demand and low supply? What's price going to do?
Let me think.
Up it goes. Well, that's exactly what the funds want to capture.
Right, and so what they're thinking is that the market's going to come back in 3 to 5 years, and they're going to then take all of these portfolios of properties, roll them into a REIT, and then send it out.
Exactly.
And make a bunch of money.
Well, that's kind of a goal.
Yeah, there we go. Now,
novel concept.
Exactly. Now, if Europe could make a bunch of money, that would be good. They're having some struggles.
Well,
you know.
that's true. This housing, though, is localized.
That's correct.
The debt may not be, because it may be packaged, securitized, and shipped somewhere else.
Everywhere, right.
But the returns to housing tend to be localized. Let's get back to Fannie and Freddie. What do you think is going to happen based on this report?
Well, nothing real soon, because the GSEs are making money, and so there's no critical issue. As we know, with the sequester, you wait until the very last minute to do anything about it, and so I don't think anything will happen right now. They've got a lot on their plate. But I think it will initiate the Treasury to initiate a report to tell what they think should be done about the GSEs. And I think maybe over the next couple of years, something will actually be done with the GSEs. They borrowed, well, the government bailed them out to about a tune of $185 billion initially, but they're paying that back now because they're making profits. And so they're, politically, they may want to wait until that's a smaller number before they do anything with them.
And so if we have the Dorsey crystal ball and we look, how long and what happens to the GSEs?
I think there will be something very similar to the proposal that they've made. There are probably going to have to be some ways of modifying that slightly. But generally it's going to be that structure. And I don't think it'll happen until the year right before the next presidential election.
So you don't think it'll be like Simpson-Bowles or Bowles-Simpson and be dead on arrival?
No, I don't.
I think there's
bipartisan support for doing something with the GSEs. Is sort of an institution that everybody loves to hate, and so everybody wants to do something with it. But at the same time, there's a strong need to provide some government backup to the housing market.
Right. And
at the same time, there's a general feeling that they need to reduce the government's involvement, and right now they own the GSEs essentially. So
not technically, but practically
with the conservatorship, and so generally I think it's going to be reduced, and I think this is a reasonable way of doing it.
So you think that we're going to have some kind of program that essentially, do you think the bailout via conservatism or conservatorship? I ran that term in on you. That conservatorship, do you think that bailout via conservatorship was good in the long term for the American people?
I think so. I mean, where would we be right now had they not done that? I mean,
we would interest costs would be much more.
Be much higher.
And credit would be much more constrained.
The economy would be coming back much slower. People
from a much lower trough.
Right.
And so
it was the right thing to do.
Congressman Frank had a great line about TARP. TARP, he said it was the most successful, most hated program, or despised program in America.
Right.
And so, because it made big money for the federal government. It was the right thing to do. It stabilized the banks, it stabilized certain other industries, and it's brought them back stronger than ever.
Right. But people don't like the idea of the government coming in and helping certain people, you know.
And not
everybody the
same
way.
You, not
right.
me.
Exactly. And it's understandable that sometimes the national demands override the individual demands.
So we'll see. We'll stay tuned for what happens to Fannie and Freddie.
All right.
I'm Bill Rayburn with Bob Dorsey. This is FNC's Morning View. You all have a fantastic week.